There is a huge amount of noise about net zero at the kind of like high media level, political level. But actually, we've just been here at the Innovate Zero conference here in Kensington Olympia, and there's a distinctly different atmosphere, isn't there, Emma?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a wee bit about that?
I'm very grateful that I'm a public servant and I don't have to do the politics, but what I'd say is in common with the climate change committee's view of the world and the view of the world of the people in here is that a lot of the heavy lifting on emissions reduction over the next decade is going to be done by electrification and by innovation. And so on the electrification side, it's a power sector using renewables because they're cheap, batteries because they're cheap. And on the demand side of energy, it's people using heat pumps in their homes instead of boilers, people driving electric vehicles. And in many cases, those technologies are more efficient. They look like they're going to beat their fossil fuel counterpart on the economics. And so regardless of the politics, you're taking a bet about a 10-year energy transition that you think will pay off if you're an investor. On the innovation side, I think because we've seen it happen with large-scale renewables, offshore wind was a pipe dream 10 years ago and is now an incumbent in the energy mix. People in there who are maybe coming up with new forms of plastic or synthetic fuels, or they're looking at carbon capture and storage, or all these technologies that will surprise us. They've seen it done, so they're more confident it can happen again. And that's just what the private sector does. And if I'm allowed to, the thing I like about the UK's carbon budgets is it allows a lot of room for that innovation and for that private sector investment. And we're saying 60 to 90% of the investment for net zero is going to come from the private sector. It's going to come from people like this.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so fascinating, isn't it? Is you do hear quite a lot of talk about the fact that, targets aren't helpful or budgets aren't helpful. But that incredible line of sight that it gives companies, entrepreneurs, innovators in the UK to start coming up with the solutions. And we do see that a lot of this stuff is happening already. So in terms of your levels of kind of excitement, confidence about bridging that gap between that disconnect, bringing more of these stories to the fore, how do you feel about that?
I think the industry can do a lot more to show off some of the projects that they're working on. I just gave a speech in there talking about the carbon budget, and that's a very technocratic exercise. It's like economic modelling and an overview of the economy. But underneath that, we know that businesses are going to be developing particular projects where they might be, for example, using waste heat from an industrial plant to heat a swimming pool in a more efficient way. About 5 people nobbled me to say that they were doing investments in local communities with like rooftop solar and batteries and getting people off grid. Everyone wanted to talk about how they translated what they were doing to lower energy bills. And I think the private sector is credible in lots of ways. It's a different voice. And I think that can be really helpful, particularly at a moment when the politics of climate change are very noisy, as you said. There's a kind of consistency with people in there. They're making bets for 10 or 20 years' time.
And that's hugely exciting. There is a real thrill to the energy transition in the UK, and we are just so delighted to have been able to speak to you, Emma, to get your thoughts, and also to be here at this Innovate Zero conference where, the rubber really is hitting the road.